What's up, hackers? Welcome to Chill Code. My name is Taggart. Mild Saucy, thank you so much for the follow right up at the top of the show. Special shout out to all of my friends at Only Feet WinterCon 2022. Hope you're having a great time there in the ski chalet. Tonight, we have a little bit of project work planned. We are going to start with WTFBins because I know everybody loves web app work so much. But just a couple of things that we want to do to enrich the data here and just get this knocked off, and then we'll play a little bit in Rust with Offensive Notion, which has had a brand new release today. Version 1.1.0 is out. The Age of Steel. We'll talk about what that means when we get to it. Thanks, Time Traveler. So kind. So WTFBins, if you don't know about this project, WTFBins.wtf is a repository, a growing repository of applications that look weird, look suspicious, but actually are totally legitimate. And so these are the kinds of things that will make noise inside of incident response and threat hunting. As you're looking through the activities on a system, you might come across one of these things and say, WTF. And you may go down a rabbit hole in thinking that it is malicious activity when in fact it's totally fine. So for example, one of my personal favorites, the Palo Alto Global Protect firewall client will run whoami.exe as system constantly, right? Like multiple times per hour. And if you're not familiar with how this application works, you're going to get some false positives on seeing these invocations of whoami. Why would you need to do that? But that's how somebody wrote the code, and so we have to account for it here. We just had a recent edition of 2 by Technique. Log Me In, which is a great one, runs avfilter.js via cscript.exe to check what antivirus is running. And another one that ringcentral.exe installs an app data and drops another Visual Basic script set default app by protocol that is then executed to query, create, modify registry entries by running command.exe. So this, like if you see cscript getting invoked this way, that would be something that you look for in a threat hunt and an incident response. That would be something you flag, but it's totally legitimate and we have the documentation to prove it here. Now, this is all cool and we have more issues coming in for new kinds of WTF bins. That being said, there are good submissions and there are not so good submissions. And I wanted to take a second to talk about what a good submission for a WTF bin looks like. And I actually want to take a look at Purple Wolf's, one of Purple Wolf's as an example of a good one. So this is about as good as it gets. So we have the ticket template, by the way, for new WTF bins. You have your contributor name, and then you have the application executable, a description of the behavior, a link to a documentation of the behavior, and then finally, Purple Wolf's adding even more evidence, right? Taking screenshots from ElkStack from their own investigation. Now, Purple Wolf is an investigator at Huntress Labs, so this is exactly the quality of work that I would expect from somebody from Huntress. Nevertheless, it's really nice to see, and this is the exact kind of thing that's going to get you an easy pass right into acceptance into WTF bins. Now, not to name and shame here too much, but an example of a not so good submission at the moment is this one from Spike Roche. Now, Spike Roche called out teams.exe and actually an application inside of Teams called squirrel.exe. And in fact, links, so far so good, links to Microsoft's documentation about squirrel.exe saying, hey, you should probably exclude Teams stuff from antivirus or DLP. And it tells us that here are the things that you want to exclude. Teams.exe, update.exe, and squirrel.exe. Now, it's weird that it's named Squirrel, but like it's inside of Teams, so, you know, whatever. What is the thing that really, it's first party, what is the sort of thing that makes it weird? And so that's why I'm asking for additional information. When I got back, unfortunately, didn't quite make the cut. So we're asking that, asking for more information. Why would this look malicious to an investigator during an investigation? And what I got back was it creates a file. It calls to update.exe, which we know is part of Teams. So far that doesn't seem too strange. And then it loads multiple DLLs. Well, that's how Windows applications work. They load DLLs. So far, I unfortunately don't have any additional information that, for me, makes the cut to a WTF bin. Now, there were some images that I didn't see because this was an email response. Unfortunately, I didn't see those attachments. Maybe those would have enlightened me further. But I do need the text of that information. And so, for the moment, I've closed this one. If Spike Roach decides to add more information that does make it seem more suspicious, maybe there's some other invocation that happens, maybe it, does a really strange API call, something else like that, then we'll reopen it. I'll be happy to add it. But that's kind of the difference between a good WTF bin submission and a not so good WTF submission. I know there's not like a lot of people checking this out right now, but I wanted to kind of put that out into the ether because we are getting more and more of these, and I did just want to put it out there, like that's what we're looking for. So for example, actually Purple Wolf gave me a new one today, and this led me to think, okay, I think it might be time to enrich our data a little bit more. So this one is also fantastic, right? So Dre has given me another one. The application is bloodhound.exe with a full path, phenomenal. We'll put that right in there. WTF behavior description, Silver Bullet Technologies Ranger runs as an executable called bloodhound.exe. So yeah, for sure, if I see bloodhound.exe running on a system, that WTF is going to be my response, because my first thought is that, oh, this is Bloodhound. It's not hidden very well, but it's Bloodhound, right? Or Sharphound or whatever it is. Somebody put something in there. Miles Saucy says scroll.exe used to be unsigned, and then I believe at one point it was a lol bin for arbitrary execution, but it's no longer. Okay, that's good information. So it's not a lol bin anymore. It's not unsigned anymore. So neither of those would really qualify it as a WTF at this point. So this is incredible. So we have this description and then link to documentation of behavior. We've got a reference here from Silver Bullet in a couple different places, and we can choose which one. Now, in cases like this, I'm actually starting to find, and maybe this isn't the best practice, but when we have great references like this, I don't hate the idea of linking back to the issue as the link to the documentation, and then people can, follow it from there. I think that's actually going to help out because GitHub is storing this for me anyway, right? I can see these different pieces of information about how things work. But the thing that really kind of got me thinking about this here, other than Husky cracking up, was this good boy here. I love it. And I could be wrong, but it almost looks as though Dre changed the font to Comic Sans for this screenshot, which if so, masterstroke, fantastic work. But this is making me think, okay, if enough people are submitting screenshots, I should probably make that available as part of the data that we put into the WTF bin. Now, from a navigation standpoint, another thing that we've added to WTF bins, they're big right now just because, I don't know, they look good, but we can make them smaller if we want. That's not hard to do. But one of the things we do have now is direct links to specific WTF bins. So if I click on one of these, it'll take me to the ID, right? And I can navigate correctly with them. So I was thinking that in the full view, why not actually include the image that is part of the data as well? And we can continue to add images as we move forward. Doesn't seem like such a bad idea. To do that, though, we're going to have to re-implement a couple of things inside of how WTF bins works. So let's get started with that. And I'm going to just best practice here. I'm going to git checkout to a new branch called IMG. And that way, all of my changes will be, for this feature, will be here in this new branch. So I'm not messing with main until I'm ready to. Okay. So first thing I'm going to need to do, so WTF bins is written in Vue and TypeScript. So it's JavaScript, but with a typing system. So pretty great. In order then for me to change up how WTF bins are loaded, I have to do a couple things. The first is in my flat data file, which is all it is right now. That's all we need right now. Maybe later, it'll become a proper database and that'll be fine. But for the moment, I'm not stressing about it. It's just a good old JSON file. So in order to add an image to each one of these things, we're going to basically use regular expressions. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for any instances. Let me enable regular expressions and make it case sensitive. We're going to look for any instance of documentation. And actually, we should be good at that point, but documentation and then any number of additional characters all the way to the end of the line. Now, what we're going to do with this is we're going to replace it with the initial match, which is the ampersand. And then we're going to do image URL. Yep, all this looks good. So I'm going to add essentially a key value pair with regular expressions to every entry here so that each one has one. I think I've gotten this right, but let's just make sure. Nope. Okay, so I didn't do that part right. Oh, is it $ampersand? Mishi, thank you so much for the follow. It is, but I need a new line first. And it looks like I'm also going to need any number of spaces. So we'll actually match from the beginning of the line and then any number of spaces. So space plus. Good. So then we're going to replace that with the original, then a new line. I think that's good. Yes. However, I'm going to need to... This is kind of cool. However, I'm going to need to capture these spaces so that I have the same number of them on the next line. So this is actually going to be fun. We're going to capture those in a capture group. And what that does is allow me to say, okay, we're going to capture the whole thing, the whole pattern match with this, but I also am getting a specific capture group here. So I'm going to replace it. So after the new line, I'm going to do $1, which will give me the spaces as well. And that looks pretty good. I don't need that extra new line. Okay, so that's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. And so I'm just going to go ahead and find and replace all. And I have now injected an image URL into each JSON element here, exactly the way that I would want. That is the power of regular expressions. So we'll go ahead and save that. And get st, git commit m, add image URL to database. Great. Next up, now that we have the JSON sorted, we're going to have to set up our data. So inside of our store, which is basically how we represent the data in Vue, we have this interface. Oh, nope, wrong interface. That's the bin state. Where's my... interfaces? There. That's what I was looking for. So this interface WTFBin is where I'm defining the WTFBin type, essentially. Type is kind of a tricky word in this case, but it really is. So an interface is a guarantee saying that a WTF-bit is going to have these attributes, an ID that's a number, a name that's a string, blah, 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 blah. Well, we just added one. So we're going to add image URL, which is a string. Everything's still looking pretty good here. This is the live view of the dev machine, or the dev instance. All right, so everything's still working. I haven't broken anything. That's great news. So now I actually have to go add this. Now, I only want to add the image on the specific view here. And if we look at our WTFBin detail view, that's exactly what this is. So just to prove the proof of concept here, we've got the description and we've got the footer with the documentation. And I think what I want to do is I'm going to put just raw an image here, image source equals, and that's going to be WTFBin.image URL. Hey, honeypots, good to see you. And that will be where we start conversation. Okay. We have a broken image, which is fine. That's fine, because we have to add a bunch of them. So one of the things we could do is we could put a safety in here, right? Because a bunch of these don't have images. So we could put this inside of a VIF. So this only renders if a specific expression is true. So we say VIF equals WTFBin dot image URL not equals an empty string or something like that. It doesn't like that. Why? Oh, just because this can't be the beginning of a tag, you idiot. I was like, good job. Okay. Image URL does not equal blank. Oh, that's still rendering. WTFBin is missing the following properties from WTFBin ID, name, contributor, description, through. Type WTFBin is missing the following properties from WTFBin. Ah, right, of course. The problem is that this is loading from real data. So I have to go and actually, this is kind of cool. So I'm going to get checkout to main, git merge img just for a second, because I haven't. Okay. Then I'm going to get push up to WTFBins, check out back over to my image branch. Everything still looks good there. Now, come on. Yeah, that shouldn't be right. Oh, because it's in quotes. Let's get rid of quotes. It's still rendering, but I shouldn't see WTFBin dot. Yeah, I really shouldn't be seeing that. Every freaking time with this. Interface was updated. Yep, image URL string. All looks good. Let's rerun the dev and make sure everything's good here. Okay. Of course. Capitalization issue. People can go back and forth on whether you should do URL as a single capital or not, but I tend to do it that way. Okay, so this is all looking all right. Now it's not pretty yet, but we're getting an image when it's there. So let's go ahead and add. Let's go back over to, so we have something to work with, right? Let's go back over to main. We're gonna update our WTFbins.json to add a new WTF bin. .13, and then let's go get the data from Dre. And love it. Again, is it the most detailed data? No. And I am thinking about ways that we can do better with it. But as a starting point, honestly, not so bad. The whole adventure here with WTF bins has been, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Okay, and then there's our documentation. We're gonna do the issue itself as the documentation in this case. And then image URL. We're definitely just taking this bloodhound.exe copy image address. Okay. And our tags are going to be, so this is Windows. Silver Bullet. Never heard of it before, but whatever. And I really can't think of any other tags for this other than maybe Bloodhound, I guess. But it isn't really, you know? But maybe that'll be helpful. Okay. Everything looks good here. We're going to just add WTFbins.json. And back to img. Git merge main. Cool. And now, let's go home. Reload our data. Ahem. Reload our data. What's happening? I'm actually curious if the live site is loading it. Yep, sure is. Weird. There it is. I don't know why it took so long to load, but there it is. Okay. So now if we open this up. Uh-oh. Why? Because it's still saying WTFbin.image URL like that. So if I put it in quotes, will it work? No. Image URL. Am I doing something stupid with view images? I always feel like there's something like that, where it's like, oh wait, is it a directive like this? No. No. Is it v source? No. Hold on. Freaking view. That was the thing. I chose view as like a way to learn. Bloodhound, not that one. Yeah. Why is this hard? Ah, I was right. It is it is a directive. Okay. Now this is older data, but it still should work. All right. This is such a basic thing. Why is it hard? Oh, because you know why? Because no curlies for directives. It's loading the data that way. There it is. Okay. Now we have to style this thing. And so let's take a look at how it looks up here. So obviously it needs to be centered, right? That's gross otherwise. So down here, we're going to come down into the bin item. And we're going to style bin item image. Could I put this in a div and style it that way? Sure, but I might not need to. Text align, center. Nope. Let's do margin auto. Nothing. Okay, hold on. Where are we here? Bin item. And then image. Yeah, should be right there. So bin item. Width. Let's make sure I'm changing anything at all. Width 10%. Okay, that part works. So the width will be 80%. That's good. Now, margin, auto. Yeah, nope. Now, images are, display block. Make it a block, because images are inline by default. There it is. I know this is super weird for a lot of you security folks. Documentation's down there. Now, maybe I don't want the... Do I want to change it to be a height restriction? Blah! Not what I wanted to do. Let's see how it looks on a phone. Okay, that's not great. The way this text is running off. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln. Okay, I think that works. So what we've done here is we've styled it so that it's 30% of the view height. The width can be whatever it is, but it's the height that's going to govern the size of the image, because it's a rectangle and we're controlling one aspect of it. So if it gets to, 100% or whatever, but it's the 30% of the view height that we're going to control here. And then the margin is auto. And that looks okay. Right, you can see it actually hasn't changed much here because I'm not changing my view height.
I'm also just a girl standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
Or if we do it 80% of the width, then this will change dynamically. So here, right, obviously it's gigantic at this point, which actually isn't super helpful. Now that's at 80%. If I make it 30%, it's very tiny here, and then as on a mobile device, it's inscrutable. So what I might want to do if I do it this way, and I don't hate this idea, maybe 40% or 50%. Yeah. What I might want to do is actually change this up inside of my media query. So this is max width 1025. Yeah. So this is for small screens. So what I might do here is make this 80%. Uh-oh, what did I do? There we go. So now, on small screens, right, it will size bigger. But then... Whoop, yeah. But it's a regular size here. Actually, I feel like I want to do that at not 1025 pixels. I actually do think I want to do that at 700. So we will comment out this thing because it's not being used right now, but we will. Hey, Ryan, on a scale of 1 to 10, how Smash Smash is Husky? I really am in no position to answer that question. You're in person. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess you're gonna get both. All right, Husky. You got it. I've been practicing this one. Yeah. Let's get the... Don't mind me just breaking all my stuff. Okay, camera's on. Music, muted. Piano, unmuted. And... that's what happens, especially on Wednesdays. Okay. All right, so up first for Husky is Welcome to the Internet by Bo Burnham.
Sound check, 1, 2. How are we sounding? Hopefully you can hear me. All right, cool. Welcome to the internet, have a look around. Anything that brain of yours can think of can be found. We've got mountains of content, some better, some worse. If none of it's of interest you be the first. Welcome to the internet, come and take a seat. Would you like to see the news or any famous women's feet? There's no need to panic, this isn't a test. Just nod or shake your head and we'll do the rest. Welcome to the internet, what would you prefer? Would you fight for civil rights? Tweet a racial slur? Be happy, be horny, be bursting with rage? We got a million different ways to engage. Welcome to the internet, put your cares aside. Here's a tip for straining pasta, here's a 9-year-old who died. We got movies, doctors, fantasy sports, and a bunch of colored pencil drawings of all the characters of Harry Potter fucking each other. Welcome to the internet, hold on to your socks, cause a random guy just kindly sent you photos of his cock. They're grainy and off-putting, he just sent you more. Don't act surprised, you know you like it, you whore. See a man beheaded, get offended, see a shrink. Show us pictures of your children, tell us every thought you think. Start a rumor, buy a broom, send a death threat to a boomer. DM a girl and groomer, do a zoomer, find a tumor in a... Here's a healthy breakfast option, you should kill your mom. Here's why women never fuck you, here's how you can build a bomb. Power Ranger are you, take this quirky quiz. Obama send the immigrants to vaccinate your kids. Could I interest you in everything all of the time? A bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything all of the time. Could I interest you in everything all of the time? A bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything all of the time. You know, it wasn't always like this. Not very long ago, just before your time, right before the towers fell, circa 99. This was catalogs, travel blogs, a chat room or two. We set our sights and spent our nights waiting for you. Insatiable you, mommy let you use her iPad. You were barely 2, and it did all the things we designed it to do. Now look at you, look at you, you, unstoppable. palpable, watchable. Your time is now, your insides out. Honey, how you grew. And if we stick together, who knows what we'll do. It was always the plan to put the world in your hand. Could I interest you in everything all of the time? A bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything all of the time. Could I interest you in everything all of the time? A bit of everything all of the time. Apathy's a tragedy and boredom is a crime. Anything and everything and anything and everything and anything and everything all of the time. Dang, that's a lot of subs. Thank you very much. All right. Now, because Ginger Root requested the second song, because I know he's such a metalhead. We're going to do something a little special. Dang, Todd, thank you so much for the gift subs. All right, let's see how this goes. On a cold winter's morning, in the time before the light, in flames of death, the eternal rain, we ride towards the fight. When the darkness has fallen down and the times are tough, alright, the sound of evil laughter falls around the world tonight. Fighting hard, fighting on for the steel through the wastelands evermore. On the scattered souls will feel the hell, bodies wasted on the shores. On the blackest plains in hell's domain, we watch them as they go in fire and pain, and once again we know. Stupid auto scroll. No. So now we fly ever free. We're free before the thunderstorm. On toward the wilderness our quest carries on. Far beyond the sundown, far beyond the moonlight, deep inside our hearts and all our souls. So far away, we wait for the day, for the light source so wasted and gone. We feel the pain of a lifetime lost in 1,000 days. Through the fire and the flames we carry on. As the red day is dawning and the lightning cracks the sky, they'll raise their hands to the heavens above with resentment in their eyes. Running back from the mid-morning light, there's a burning in my heart. We're banished from a time in a fallen land to a life beyond the stars. In your darkest dreams, see to believe our destiny is time, and endlessly we'll all be free tonight. And on the wings of a dream, so far beyond reality, all alone in desperation, now the time has come. Lost inside you'll never find, lost inside my own mind. Day after day the misery must go on. So far away we wait for the day, for the light source so wasted and gone. We feel the pain of a lifetime lost in 1,000 days. Through the fire and the flames we carry on. Now here we stand with our blood on our hands. We fought so hard so we can understand. I'll break the seal of this curse if I possibly can, for the freedom of every man. So far away we wait for the day, for the light source so wasted and gone. We feel the pain of a lifetime lost in 1,000 days. Through the fire and the flames we carry on.
Okay. All right, so let's see. I am not sure what just happened while I was at the piano. Oh my god, Ryan! Thank you so much! Holy crap! What is happening right now? Just gonna quickly shut down this camera before my battery dies. My god, and 10 more! Ryan, are you okay? Do we need to be worried? Thank you so much. Incredibly kind. Oh boy. Alrighty. Roll it back, there's hundreds. Yeah, I can't help but notice that. Todd, what the... Jeez. Jeez. Ryan, so many more. Yeah, that's as far as my scroll goes. Incredible. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Ryan, Ginge, thank you so much. Perry. Valerable, thank you for the follow. Cheeto, thank you for the resub. You all are absolutely insane. Moxic, thank you so much for the follow. Friends supporting friends. 75. Ryan, you are a king. Ryan, you let me know. You send me a whisper. You send me a DM in Discord. You let me know what kind of a special song you want. I will write you a song. Maybe it can be entitled "Don't Call Me Hack the Box Ryan." Helen, well, thank you for your one gift. I do appreciate it. Okay. It's always hard to come back to coding after the piano. Yeah, got to get those emotes. We have more on the way. Sar was saying that no one has a tux emote, which is that's offensive to me personally. So we're gonna make sure that I have a tux emote coming up soon. I'll make sure that happens tonight. Todd, thank you. I'm worried this is like, you know, releasing burdens, but thank you so much for the subs. All right, we've got an image working. I think the style is looking good. That's pretty much what I wanted to do with WTF bins tonight. So let's commit these changes and call it a day. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this back over to main. We're going to git merge image. Git merge image. All right. And then we're going to git push. But in addition to that, we have one more step. We've cleared this through OnlyFoot Financial. Yeah. Have I become a laundering operation for ill-gotten gains? Through foot-gotten gains. Yeah, let's check out to Netlify. And we're gonna kill that, and then we're gonna git merge main. Good. Ryan wants a song that is about nothing but feet. I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was like everybody feets. We answered the question about laundering that you can testify, and we want to keep you safe. Truly, the best gift tonight was plausible deniability, so thank you for that. I appreciate it, Helen. Okay, redirects is still in there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do npm run build, and that'll recompile this. Good. Redirects is still there. Good, 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 good. Okay, git st, git add a, git commit m, rebuild. So the way this is set up to work is I'm publishing this on Netlify instead of GitHub Pages now. And basically what it does is I will push this to the Netlify branch. Netlify is set up. It will take that. It'll see the new code, and then it'll load the new version of the site. And git push u origin Netlify. Everyone is howling like Shaman. Just like QAnon Shaman howl like wolves. Yeah, that seems about right. Okay. Cyber tech vibes. Ryan's requesting a full feature-length remake of the Titanic, but it's literally just feet. Okay, no. I mean, you could request it. You aren't going to get it. But, yeah. So, Cyber Tech Vibes, thank you so much for the raid. Here's what happened last night. You and I, our bullets hit each other. I raided you the exact same time that you raided me. So, I don't know what happened after that. But... VR Linux, is there a reason for you not using aliases for git commands? What are you talking about? I am using aliases for git commands. Git st is git status, git co. You just saw it happen. The only one I didn't alias is git push because I want to have to press 4 keys in order to make pushes. But yeah, I use aliases. VR Linux, always in here with like, why are you doing it the way that I like perfectly? I don't know. It's the way I do it. All right, so this should be up and running. And we can test that theory. I gotta fix this size. But the image is there. And that's live right now, so... That's it for this dev for tonight, so we can close our Odyssey machine. And let's shut that down. Now it's on to Offensive Notion, and now I have to do a mental switch over from TypeScript to Rust, which actually not the hardest 2 languages to switch. Why aren't I doing this in Lisp? Because I love you. No one wants to watch anybody develop something in Lisp, even Lisp developers. You know, what should have happened, really, Cybertech Vibes, is that, you know, the 2 raids together would have kind of done like a Sonic and Knuckles situation, and it would have been like Taggart Tech Vibes, created a whole new stream that neither one of us is responsible for. That's really what should have happened, unfortunately. Not so much. Another software for Win and Linux similar to Barrier to use 1 keyboard and mouse, 2 laptops. Please. Time Traveler, I don't have any recommendations for you. Barrier is what I think you'd use. But, oh, man. All right, fine. Now you're gonna... I swear I heard about something. Here's what you should do. Go check out the podcast Late Night Linux. Late Night Linux has a couple of recommendations. A couple episodes back, they had exactly what you're looking for. I can't remember what it was called, but they had exactly that thing. So check out that podcast. You'll find what you're looking for. Lisp is the greatest language ever to grace the human race. Oof. Ryan, if you had said Haskell, we could have come to an accord, but Lisp, I don't know. I even like Racket a lot, but Lisp by itself just feels like, I don't know. It's not ready for prime time. Okay, so let's talk about Offensive Notion and our new release. So Age of Steel. As of today, Offensive Notion has a Mac agent. And actually, it was not that difficult to get this going. But I did want to call out a couple of things just so we're all on the same page about this. So macOS works, but running Offensive Notion on macOS takes a little bit more doing because macOS is, you know, actually pretty secure as an OS. And so, without an Apple developer account to sign your code, which you could do if you wanted to go that way, you can certainly build that way, that's fine. But what we do have the ability to do now is create a .app. And let me show you how this works, because, again, I used to do system administration and fleet administration for a bunch of Macs, like a school's worth of Macs. So I had to learn all the kind of weird inside baseball stuff for how macOS works. So let's talk a little bit about what we can do with macOS and what's a little bit different. So first things first. Well, actually, before we even talk about macOS, sorry, let's talk about the other cool stuff that we can do now. And huge shout out to Husky, my partner in crime, for some of these features. Absolutely phenomenal work by him. So first of all, self-destruct. So leave no trace. Self-destruct is now a feature where definitely on Windows, it will zero out the memory space and delete itself from the file system. So when you're ready to poof, smoke bomb, you can do it. With self-destruct. It doesn't just kill the agent, it actually overwrites the memory with garbage, so there's nothing for incident responders to go find. Really, really cool feature. And then also in this release, we have inject self. We already had inject before with remote, create remote thread. That's now the inject remote command. But inject self will do a self-injection, so it's doing a create thread rather than a create remote thread. Only on Windows, but still a really cool feature. A couple of other just minor fixes on the Docker build pipeline. So Husky did this amazing work on this automated build system inside of Python. And all we've done for this release is, instead of having you run the Python script first and then it doing the Docker work, basically all you now have to do is run Docker. So you do Docker image build to build the base build image that has all the Rust dependencies and everything that you'll need to cross-compile to any platform. Okay, that's all you do. You run Docker image build, and then you do Docker container run with any of the options that you want for the agent. And it'll walk you through setting up a config if you don't have one. But then it will spit out back onto your file system whatever your target build is, whether it's for Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. So all of that is just 2 Docker commands and you're off to the races. And then finally, yes, we have a Mac OS version. So with Mac OS, we have feature parity with the Linux agent. So everything you can do on the Linux agent, you can do with Mac, with one difference, which is that your persistence methods are a little bit different because we don't have systemd, or, I mean, we could do bash rc, but no one's doing that. So instead, we used some Mac-specific stuff for Mac persistence. So if you're not familiar with Mac OS and persistence in Mac malware, there are kind of 2 ways that this happens. The first one is by what's called a launch agent. And if you're familiar with systemd, or you're even familiar with Windows services, it's a very similar thing. There's a service on Mac OS called launchd, and it will take a look at XML files called plist files or preference list files in specific folders in Mac OS and run the configured commands and run them at start or set them to auto restart or however you set it. This is also how you technically are supposed to do scheduled jobs in Mac OS. You can do it with Automator as well, but that's not going to help us for our purposes here. Hey, Spitfire, thank you so much for the follow. So launch agents is one, and then login items is the other. If you've ever logged into a Mac OS system and you look at your user, let me see if I can find like an image of this. I don't have a Mac OS machine up and running, but Mac OS login items. Let's see if I can find this. Perfect. Right, so if you look at your user pane in Mac OS, there's like the password, but then there's a login items. And this is equivalent to the startup programs folder in Windows. You just set up a login item, and this thing is going to kick off when you log into the machine. It will run in the user context, of course, but it still will be there. And like nobody looks here, right? So it's actually pretty sneaky until you encounter an incident responder. Now, so far what we've talked about is Offensive Notion as compiled as a command line application. But no one on Mac OS is doing that. You're not going to like convince a web dev to go run Offensive Notion from the command line. Well, you might, but that's not really how you're going to use this as in an engagement as a real payload. You have to make it look like a .app that people will either run from their downloads folder, because people do that all the time, or they'll move it to their applications folder. You need to make that. And how do you do that without running Xcode? How do you do that without, going through the entire developer process? There is a way, and we've written up the instructions on how to do that inside of our wiki in the Mac OS notes section. And let me link that here so you can follow along if you want. So a couple of things, right? So even if you try to run this from the command line, right? If you try to run Offensive Notion from the command line, it'll say, hey, this isn't verified, knock it off. Now you can get around that, or a user can get around that by going to security and privacy, and you can see that if you try to run it once, it'll already be kind of queued up for you to create an exception to allow this thing to run. But this is gross. Like, that's not how you want to deliver your payload. Already it's suspicious. And by the way, even after you allow this exception, because it's not signed, when you try to run it, you still have to do this. You still have to hit open, like so. All right, so that's not ideal. The solution is this tool called Platypus. And Platypus has been around forever. Look at this website. You gotta love the open source Mac community. They haven't changed since 1998. And what do we have going on here? So what Platypus does is it's designed to take shell scripts, okay, and wrap them into a .app. Of course, it's in the BSD license. It's written in Objective-C Cocoa. It has not changed in a long time, right? The latest version was released, like 3.5 years ago, but it still works because all of the Objective-C and Cocoa dynamic libraries are still in macOS to this day. They haven't end-of-lifed them. People are still writing in Objective-C because they hate themselves. So that's what's up. You can install this with Homebrew if you're a macOS person, or you can just download the .app, which I did. Once you have it, this is kind of what it looks like, where you have an icon and you can actually go into our repository and go grab from the agent folder. You can grab the notion.ico icon and drop it in here and make that your icon for your app. Now, the extra step here is that because it's designed to run shell scripts, we have to give it kind of like a kickoff shell script. I would write it using Z-shell, ZSH as the interpreter, because that will make it blend in more with macOS in modern times, right? Because the default shell is Z-shell on macOS now. So if you run bin bash, that's going to be a tell. So don't do that. Make it a Z-shell, and that's just available here in the script type dropdown. Then you can send it your script path. So what you do is you write a small wrapper script. Let me just go to macOS notes here. That looks a little like this. Z-shell and then offensive notion. Now don't worry about the pathing, because what we're going to do next after you set that up is we're going to include offensive notion right here in the bundled files. You could also include the config JSON if you're using an external config. But once you have offensive notion in your bundled files, the script will know how to look for it in its current folder. So that's fine. You can use a relative path like that. Set your interface to none so nothing shows up. Set your identifier however you want. This is how it's going to look in the plist. So I would make it something like com.notion for Mac or whatever you want to call it. Make sure it has 3 parts and a reasonable author. Remain running after execution, and then just create app. That's it. That's it. And then you have a .app. Now, once you make this thing, and here's an example of what this would look like, right? Once you have this thing, you have an app. It may require you to right-click and open it because it's still not signed, but that's less of a tell. There's lots of applications that Mac users will use from day to day that aren't signed because they didn't get them from the Mac store, from the Apple store. Nope, the Mac App Store. That's what I meant. So that's less of a tell. It's not perfect, but it's much better than trying to get somebody to run something from the terminal, right? And then once that happens, you're off to the races, and it's running just like any other agent. And you can do persistence from that and whatever else you want. So those are kind of the extra steps if you want to deploy to a macOS target. That's the best way I've figured out how to do it. But so far, I mean, I haven't used this on an engagement, but I have tested it out, and it seems to work very well. That was a lot of rapid speaking. Does anybody have any questions about this? If not, we'll just get into some work. All right. Have you noticed if the latter versions of macOS are buggier and easier to exploit? John, no, quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Ever since, I want to say High Sierra, it's gotten way, way, way harder to compromise macOS in really interesting ways. They've seriously locked down a lot of stuff. And in fact, one thing you need to know about is the Apple Security Toolkit. I think that's what it's called. It's not HomeKit. It's I want Apple Developer, like. Isn't it almost impossible to get into an updated iPhone? Well, tell that to the NSO group. This is what I want. Security framework is really what I should have been looking for, not toolkit. So the security framework, if you want to write a security-based application for Mac OS, like Jamf does, you have to write to this framework. It's newer, but this is how it works. And it works very similarly to kind of the way the security stuff on Windows works, where things emit events, and then you have to, key into those events. This is really, really worth reading about if you're interested in Apple security. Start here. Yeah. So, Mild Saucy asks, never heard of Platypus, but outside red teaming, do I use that for sysadmin work? Seems useful. Yeah, I used it all the time as a sysadmin. What I would do sometimes, if I had apps that I needed, or like shell scripts that I need to wrap in an app for users to use, for whatever reason, like I had one that like resized images or something like that kind of thing. I would wrap it in a Platypus app and then deploy it with Monkey. Which, if you're not familiar with Monkey, it's open source software development. Open source software configuration management. So basically, yeah, it used to be Google's, now it's Disney's. And the way it works is it's almost like SCCM, but basically there's a little app store that you control, and you control the repositories for it. People can go in here and choose apps to install. You set up the install stuff, any install keys, things like that. Even Adobe has figured out how to they'll give you instructions on how to package Adobe stuff for a Monkey, because it's so widespread. In addition, you can have forced updates. So you can send shell scripts as forced updates. So if I needed to reset a lot of passwords, this would be how I do it. Or if I needed to install printers or anything else like that, I would do it this way and send it as like a push to my fleet. It was really, really handy. Okay. I saw another question up here. Oh yeah, but in terms of getting into Mac OS, one of the things that I think is worth noting is that Mac OS has this thing called SIP, which is System Integrity Protection. Now, SIP is, for all intents and purposes, it creates a rootless system. Meaning, yes, you can elevate to root with sudo on a Mac OS machine, but that doesn't mean you can write to every part of the file system. There are parts that are still protected. And in particular, things like boot, kernel extensions, things like that are protected. You cannot touch them. In order to change that up, you have to launch the machine in recovery mode and disable SIP. It's a whole huge pain. Yeah. And it's almost no one does this anymore. No one disables SIP because it's so crucial to how it works. Yeah, John, exactly. This was designed to prevent rootkits. That's exactly right. And it also basically, not just rootkits as malicious, but also forced developers to work through the right methodology to write kernel extensions for Mac OS, which do exist, but you have to do it in their blessed way now. And that's been true since I want to say High Sierra, but it might actually be Sierra. Okay. So let's get some work done. One of the things that I am working toward for the next version, you can see we've got a bunch of issues open here. Ginge is Age of Steel, a Doctor Who reference. Not on purpose, but it can be for you. Let me tag this as a won't fix. But yeah, so we're going Tyson Bug. We have a bunch of stuff that we want to do with the next version of Offensive Notion, and two of them, which are deeply entangled, are string encryption and dynamic invoke. So with deinvoke, there is a Rust proof of concept for dynamic invoke, and if you're not familiar, the idea with deinvoke is that instead of directly calling APIs, you're essentially using dynamic invocation to search for the API function, which means that there is less to hook onto for EDRs looking at your application and how it's interfacing with the Windows API. That was a very high-level description of it, but this is the basic idea. And so we see we've got dynamic invoke here, and we're going to resolve ntdll.dll, and then we're getting the function of RTL adjust privilege, and then we're using it to elevate our permissions here. That's kind of how that works. Open process, the usual stuff. But so our idea was, because we know that we're getting got a little bit by Defender, and one of the ways we know we're getting got is when we try to do injection with create remote thread. Well, one of the ways that that's going to happen is if we are the C# stream. Yeah, that was good times for some of us. No, that was fun. But if we use dynamic invoke, there's less for the EDR to hook onto, and in fact, we can directly access the DLLs rather than working through what the EDR has for us already hooked. So this is kind of step one of that. Now the problem is, in order to get there are a couple of problems, but one big one is that this library uses a tool called libcrypt, which should be in the documentation, but let me see. Cheeto Bandito asks, I know this is a noob question. Never self-deprecate yourself like that. It's okay to ask questions like that. Why can't Windows apps run on Mac OS? Here's why. Operating systems at a very low level are different, right? And the way that the Windows operating system looks at bytes, right? Just the bytes of a file, and an executable file, is entirely different from the way that the Darwin kernel, also known as the mock kernel, and all the way back to macOS actually has its roots in BSD, how the Unix type operating systems look at executable files. They're totally different architectures. It's not just the processors. It used to be, and I guess it is going to be again, but it's not the processors exactly, but it's how the operating system level is actually looking at the bytes of a file, determining whether it's executable, and then how to read those executable instructions. That's the difference. All of that is handled at the operating system level, the kernel level, and because those kernels are so different, they really are just completely different beasts. Absolutely. No, it's a really good question. I think, we can kind of take that kind of stuff for granted, but it's important. Two people mention wine at exactly the same time. Wine is not an emulator. It natively runs the instructions, but supplies all the Windows library kernel functions. Exactly. Why is it not telling me about... Wait. This is C#. This isn't the Rust one. I was like, where is... Where's the Rust deinvoke? There it is. There it is. Okay, cool. So this is what it looks like in Rust. Get module base address. Awesome. ntdll.dll. All these black moments. And then you can see that we're getting create thread. We're getting the function address of nt create threads. By the way, is it just me, or is the Rust implementation of this way cleaner? Maybe specifically for this kind of purpose, but at any rate, I think this is really clean. But in order to do this, there is a library that this deinvoke crate uses called litcrypt. And what litcrypt does, kind of wild, is that it will encrypt string literals and decrypt them at compile time. So that seems a little bit crazy, but what we're saying is, let's take a look at our code here. Perfect. So this right here, this is a string literal. Okay, and it's actually wrapped inside of a macro right now, which we'll talk about, but this is a string literal, and I want these things to be encrypted because they are going to be detected with strings, right? Everything I put in here that is a string, even when it's compiled for release, even when it's stripped, is an opportunity for detection, and I want to minimize my opportunities for detection. So to show you kind of what I mean by this, I'm actually gonna make a new project just to demo this. I'm gonna do cargo new litcrypt demo. Thank you very much. And we will open VS Code here in a new window. I'll close Offensive Notion for the moment. So, been a while since I've started a new Rust project, but this is what it looks like. And we're going to do cargo.toml. Okay, this is all good. Now, the point I want to make with this is going to require me to get litcrypt. So, go install it. And then in my main.rs, there's nothing here at the moment. But I am going to add this macro use extern create litcrypt and the use litcrypt macro in just a second. But the first thing I want to do is run this thing. All right, so this looks good. Let's go over to our terminal, do cargo run. Cargo run. Make sure this is all good. It says now you see me. Okay, no problems. And of course, what we're going to do is we're going to go cargo build release. And I'm building for Linux, but the same thing would be true in Windows, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to just take strings n8, and we're going to do target release litcrypt demo grep C. Right up at the top. There it is. Okay? Now, I am going to take this stuff right here, macro use, extern create litcrypt. Let me save this, right? Rust analyzer is installing litcrypt for me in the background. Very handy. All right. It's screaming at me about this. This should be okay, though. But we have a problem. We can't use litcrypt just yet. And I'm going to have to close this window and open it up again. And that's because litcrypt, as the documentation tells you, is you have to have an environment variable called litcrypt encrypt key set in order for it to run. And so we're going to close this window and then set that environment variable. You see I've done this before. Set x litcrypt encrypt key. We'll call it litcrypt demo in this case because we're in that folder. Fire this back up. And behold. No more... spoke too soon. Unresolved macro, use litcrypt. This all should look good, though. Did I forget a step? Nope. 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 But I'm going to wrap this inside of an LC. Now what? Format argument must be a string literal. Now it's screaming at me, but I'm going to try to build it anyway. This error is the macro LC and nightly builds. Format must be a string literal. Oh, like so. I love it when there are no errors. Okay, so now it's running. Let's cargo build it again. Okay, everything's good. Now, we're going to do strings again. 8. Look at that. It's gone. I want that for every single string literal in my program so that you cannot use my messages against me. Kiwi, thank you so much for the follow. So that's the plan. Now, how are we going to do it? We'll close this. And let's go back over to actual offensive Notion here. And what's the last thing I committed here? Oh, the merge. Yeah, let me push that just so we don't have that hanging over our heads. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take litcrypt and add it back to our dependencies. I had played with this before. I tried to get it going for the release and it just wasn't working, but I don't like to lose. So we're going to try this one more time. You can see that the cargo.toml for... this is definitely not plain text. This is definitely toml. I don't know why you're not highlighting correctly, but... yeah, just straight up dependencies. So right there, litcrypt 0.3. Now we're going to in our main.rs, we're going to do a macro use, right? Yeah. And then extern create lit crypt. By the way, so here's the thing about Rust that not everybody knows. It doesn't really like that macro use, so I'll get rid of it. But extern create lit crypt. Oh, do I have to put it above this macro use? Yes, I do. Extern create lit crypt. So here's what's the difference between extern create and use in Rust? Does anybody know who isn't Donut? The way this works is extern crate makes the crate available to every module in the project. So if you declare these things up here, you don't have to re-import them again later. You have to do use if you want to just use specific things. But the whole namespace is available to you in the rest of the project. That's the difference between extern crate and use. You only really use extern crates at the project root, in this case main.rs. Okay. Now we're going to just try this here with use lit crypt, which I don't have. So I'm going to do yep, we're going to use lit crypt LC use lit crypt. Perfect. All right, so we're getting those macros, and we call use lit crypt the macro, which it doesn't like because we don't have the encryption key set up. So I'm going to close this window and then export or set lit crypt encrypt key, and you can make this whatever you want, and in fact, the build script will set this for you. But I'm just going to set it to offensive notion so it has something, and then rerun VS Code. Oh crap! I opened the wrong folder. That's better. Okay, so uselit crypt is no longer screaming at me. Now, this is the trick. So if we get this to work, then I'm very excited. So print line, if I do LC and wrap this, it's going to yell at me, I'm pretty sure. It does. So instead, what I have to do is like this. I have to give it the formatter, and then like so. And that works. Okay. Now, here's the next trick. I have a couple of see, it returns a string, I'm pretty sure. So encrypting the string literal, and the encrypted string remains encrypted in both disk and memory during runtime it will be used. If we look at the source code for this, it'll become a little bit clearer. So let's look at the LC source code. Quick aside here. We are looking at metaprogramming. So the function you see here called LC, which is a macro, what it is doing, it's called a procedural macro. That's why it has that proc macro decorator. What it is doing is it is reading raw Rust syntax and processing it using Rust syntax. I know that's a crazy concept, but basically, LC is taking in tokens of syntax in what's called a token stream and processing them. And in fact, it returns a token stream. Notice that the first thing that it does, though, is it creates an empty string. Creates an empty string. Not an str, like a little string. So we have to keep that in mind, that whatever we process through LC here is going to be a proper string, not a string reference. And also notice, look at this doofus, get magic spell. Okay. And also notice that even though it XORs it with your encryption key, it also XORs it with leet. Unnecessary, didn't have to do it, but it double XORs your code with both the encrypt key that you set up. That's what is happening up here. That's this whole situation. And then it also XORs it with the byte string leet. Why? I don't know, but it does. And then result equal quote, and then takes a token stream, create decrypt internal decrypt bytes, result dot into. And that is how litcrypt works. It's a little crazy. And in all of this up here, this is kind of interesting too. See this use litcrypt, which we actually invoked in our main.rs? When this code compiles, this one line, this use litcrypt, will become all of this. Which is nuts, but that's what happens. So procedural macros are pretty crazy. They're a very powerful part of Rust. And this is the exact kind of thing that you want it for, something that is crazy complicated, but that you want to make easy when you're doing your code. And it's using some external dependencies, proc macro 2, to actually do their work for procedural macros. Okay. So just be aware of that. Now, thinking about this, if we do launching app to string, what I could do for this might be something like if I give it LC, will this work? Yes, it will. At least we hope so. But I'm a little worried it's going to say unknown. So let's try just that much and see what happens. There's my agent, and it did in fact say launching app. So that worked. Why was I having such a hard time with this? It's working great now. This never gets old. It never gets old. It's so fun to see this thing work. It might get old for you. But you chose to be here, so I don't know what to tell you. Alright, let's kill this. Delete this. Right. Whoop. We love the punishment. Okay, settle down. I guess I can delete the from the API, huh? I don't use that ever. Okay, so that worked. Now, I don't think I can do raw. I don't think that I can encrypt this. I might be able to encrypt this. Launching browser toString. So anytime I see one of these, I'm pretty sure that I can do an LC. Now, things that I cannot encrypt are things that I don't know at compile time, meaning error messages, can't do it. I cannot encrypt error messages. That's just the way that goes. But anything that is a string literal, I am pretty sure that I can. Let's see what happens here. So this admin context is interesting. So this is not going to work. .as stir. Yeah, that's not going to play. Format argument must be a string literal. Again, so anything that I don't know at compile time, I cannot do like this. And this is actually where I was kind of getting messed up. I don't really know what the best way to do this is, other than maybe writing all of my message strings in such a way that I can encrypt most of it and then add on whatever the message is at the end and kind of split it up that way. That would be a little bit funky, but it might be doable. We know that licrypt is starting to work because we have it functioning here. But you can see all this stuff where we're formatting, right? This logger.info format. This is actually kind of messy too. And I would love to have litcrypt kind of do the work for me and do the encryption on its side. But I don't quite know how I want to make that happen just yet. Maybe logger is where I should start rather than with the Notion output. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So over in logger, if I go grab, this is the logging library that we put together. You can see that I only need to use the LC macro here. I don't have to use extern create or anything. I'm just saying use litcrypt. And if we see how this works, log. I don't think that I need to do this, but I want to know. Oh, I actually can do that. But this turns these into strings. It's idiotic. Why would I encrypt an empty string? But at least now they're all the same type. Okay, now we have a move issue because remember, these are all strings now. These are proper strings. So the log glyph. I can't reference that. Oh, but you know what? All I have to do is change this up. So instead of saying log glyph and separating that out, that's just the start of my string. So we are going to call that log MSG. And I'm actually going to notate it as a string here just for cleanliness. And then make it mutable. Then I don't need this. And I'm going to just add a space here to each of these to make my life easier. And then we're just going to print line. Log MSG. Now, does this encrypt the log message? No. It encrypts the glyph. But how are we doing so far? I don't... Hold on. So where's the logger start doing its work? Logger. Hostname, config options. That's where the logger starts doing its work. So... Okay. Logger's working with encryption. I'm curious if strings sees it. Strings and target, release, offensive notion, grep. We should see it somewhere in here. Oh, hat. So we see it in sleep time for in shell. That's so funny. So you can see that there are some strings here that are like bash backdoored. All the fun, cute messages we put in here can be used against us, and that's what we want to stop. We want there to be as little of a signature that's easy to see as possible. But before we go any further, then, like, we know... I could check the lit crypt example here. Yeah. So the reason this works is because print line takes a format string and the thing to fill in. And we're encrypting the thing to fill in that doesn't have a format symbol in it. But you see how that's a little bit different than what we're doing here with admin context, because we're formatting. It's actually the opposite of what we want to do. I can't LC this because it's this is already going to be Oh, in this case, I guess it's a Boolean, but even worse, right? It's not a string. So if we look at the source code for litcrypt, let's take a look at that LC macro again and see what it does. And this is the problem we were running into. So it looks through all the tokens in the token stream, and it matches for the type. If it is a literal of any kind, meaning numbers or whatever, it turns it into a string. If it isn't a literal, and a literal is going to be things between quotes, it's going to be a number, whatever is like those primitive expressions in a language. That's what a literal is. Otherwise, it makes a string called unknown, and it will knock these brackets off for reasons I don't entirely understand. Right here. Right. Lit to string. Oh, you know why? Because it has the quotes in it. But if it doesn't, it just has these unknowns. So it takes the quotes off, or it takes these off, and gives us unknown. That's interesting. But the point is that if it isn't a string literal that this thing gets, or sorry, if it isn't a literal, not a string object or string struct, if it isn't just like something in quotes that you literally write down, it will not work. And of course it won't, because it needs to have these literals. These are the only primitive types that it can know at compile time. So unfortunately, we have to do some extra thinking about how to handle this exact situation. So I want to format my log messages. I'm not quite sure about how to do that just yet. Now, can I use them for the headers, like Notion version? Can I use encryption here? Yes, I can. And the reason why is because look at the signature for this thing. It says insert for headers takes a K type, where K has the trait into header name. And we would have to look that up in HTTP header. Can we specify an arbitrary user agent? Yeah, we can. That could be a config option if you want. Sure. Because right now it's Rust, right? I think. Yeah, we can set a user agent here. But, HTTP header map. Oh, because it's part of request, isn't it? Yeah. Headers. Header map has insert and into header name. That's what I wanted. The into header name trait is really kind of interesting. Notice that it has an implementation for a static string, literal, but not a string. It has this generic here, which might work for us. Nope. So if we look at the source code for how it's implemented, it just isn't. It just is the thing. So if we want to use a string for into header name, we may have to implement that. It might not matter due to TLS, but maybe if they decide they don't like the Rust one. Well, Husky, I do think it matters because, you know, more and more often you're in an environment with HTTP proxies, and TLS decryption, where you're actually working against something where the root CA is the proxy or the firewall, and they can see at least your HTTP headers. They can look at more if they want, so I think it's worth our time to configure that for sure. Look, if Malleable C2 does it, then we have to think about it too. God, where was I? In our headers, right? One thing Al recommended is the entire HTTPS body encryption underneath the TLS itself. There's entire HTTPS body encryption. Encryption of the API call payload itself. We can't do it with litcrypt because we can't know what the body is at compile time. That is the struggle with this library, right? It has to be known at compile time. And we don't know what the body of the request is going to be at compile time, right? That's dynamic. You'd have to roll an AES Mondo encryption on the fly. But Husky, even if we were to do that, there is no way, if somebody were watching the strings in real time in the agent, there's no way to hide the unencrypted string at some point. It has to be there at some point during the run. There's no way around that. We just have to... What we're trying to do is make sure that our static artifacts are as clean as possible. And then kind of go from there. There. I don't know why I went so far afield. So, if I try to do LC with this, it should yell at me. It does, because it says the trait bound into header map is not satisfied, into header name is not implemented for std string. I have to tell you, I've been reading the Rust for Rustations book from No Starch Press, and I feel like my Rust powers have increased yet again. Just in the last week, I deeply understand these traits and generics in a way that I thought I got it before, but now I really feel like I can get my head around it. So the way to fix this exact problem is, look, we don't have an implementation for into header name for a string. Let's make one. Right, we'll do it right here in main, but we might put this elsewhere. So impl headers, or let me see. What is the actual request header? So we may be able to just get away with a naive implementation. Not so much. Only traits defined in the current crate can be implemented for arbitrary types. Okay. I have to use string, I guess. Still doesn't like that. Only trace defined in the current crate can be implemented for arbitrary types. Define and implement a trait or a new type instead. Ooh, okay. So that's an extra step, and I don't feel like doing it right now. Never mind. Okay, so encrypting the headers, going to be tricky. Can we just do like as stir for this? No. Argument requires that borrow lasts for static. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Okay. So these are the kinds of challenge that we're having with the encryption, is that it's really finicky. And, you know, that's understandable. Let's see what else we got. Application.json.parse. Why is this happening? Why are we doing this? I'm just looking at this insert, like, why? Val T. If the map did not previously. Parse to unwrap. But I'm not clear why. What type T is it looking for that we need to do that? Invalid header value. So it's a result header value, invalid header value. I see. Got it. So that's a safety for the header values. What else can we encrypt? Nothing here. Now, actually, I do wonder if we can. No, because they're not literals. Here's the thing. So this is a number, right? Obviously. But even if I were to use like a function to convert this into a string reference, I wouldn't have a literal. Let me put that another way. Like, if I have, let's say, let s equals string from foo. I know this is outside. Don't worry about the errors. Okay. And then even if I did s.as_stir, okay? Here's the deal. When this is picked up by litcrypt, what it will see is not a literal. Instead, what it will see is not a literal. These are what were called meta variables. But an expression. This is an expression. And so when this gets parsed by the macro will see it and say, oh, you're not a literal. I'm going to give you unknown. And it'll work right? The code won't fail, but that's why we were getting unknowns all over the place, was because we were giving it an expression instead of a literal. There is no way to cheat that. The only way to give it a literal, this won't work either. The only thing that LC can take as a literal is this. So that's the only thing that it can encrypt. Now, maybe that's not good enough for our purposes. We have to come up with some other trick. But I want to work with it and see what we can do, because we know that we have to have litcrypt in here if we want to do de-invoke anyway. Hey, the Flet, good to see you. It's okay. We're trying to do string encryption inside of Rust, meaning that, or string literals. So basically what that means is we are trying to find pieces of our code that we can encrypt so that we don't give ourselves away inside of our code here. We can encrypt user local bin Google Chrome. I wonder if we can encrypt this. I don't think we can, but maybe we can. Well, it didn't like that. Expected and stir found struct string. We're gonna have to fix this, I think, for we have to fix this for Mac OS anyway, but we'll get there. Yeah, if we just change this to a string, it should work. And that did encrypt, although I want to build it for Windows and see if it actually worked. Okay, it built. Let's build it, release. And let me shut off Defender. Take your time, Windows build. All right. There you go. Oh, you idiot. Yeah, it's running, of course. Shut down. I'm pretty sure this is dead, but I just want to make sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one's toast. Okay, so that's done. Do I not have config.json? Yeah, there it is. Launch app, true. Log level 5. Oh, but it doesn't matter because release... Sorry, I forgot how my own app worked for a second. The release build for Windows doesn't give output to the console at all. So we will... copy that one over and try that again. Okay, it does say launching app. And we get an error saying the file name, directory name, or volume label syntax is incorrect. So the agent launches, but the app launch didn't happen because... I don't have to run shutdown from the C2. Because this did not work. All right, let's recompile without the encryption to just make sure that that's actually what the problem was. Oh. Since I'm now expecting a string, I need to run toString on that. Okay. And there's the fake notion. Okay. Huh. So, important note, I can't, this isn't actually a string literal. This is, in fact, an expression. Really interesting. I'm wondering if this is kind of how this is going to go, that we can encrypt some, but not all things. That might be how that works. Okay. Well, let's set that up anyway. In order to use litcrypt at all, though, we have to make sure that's set by the Python script, which... Did we pull that out, Husky? I think we did. Yeah. Yeah, we pulled that out of here. Oh, wait. No, because we'll still need to do it. Yeah. I think we asked for it up here. Right? I won't mess with this just yet. That's a good start here. XT. I will leave it to you, good sir. You do the Pythons very, very well. You are friends with the noodles. You handle the snakes, I'll handle the crabs. So I guess the last thing that if we wanted to play with it a little bit tonight would be de-invoke. If we wanted to go crazy. Now, this is kind of interesting. De-invoke does not have a crates.io instance. it is straight up from here. So this is kind of wild. What happens is if you can give, cargo, you can give it a Git repository to go get. And what it will do is it will look, this is what's called a workspace. If we look at this cargo.toml, you will see that it has these dependencies with a path, right? And so those are kind of down built in here for each one of them. And what's cool is cargo will actually go look in every folder of a Git repository for a cargo.toml file. How interesting is that? So if we go to like deinvoke, we see another cargo.toml. So it'll go like read all this and handle all of it. In order to use deinvoke then, yeah, it gives us all these examples of how to use it, but not how to actually get the dependency in here. But it's easy enough. Because, yeah, you just use git equals. Just like that. So we're going to do that. We're going to try getting deinvoke in here in cargo.toml. Now, this is going to be a Windows build dependency only. Yep. And I hit save on this, it's going to immediately start going to get this. And pulling it down. In theory, I now have access to deinvoke as a dependency. So if I go back to the example here, this should now be something I can do. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Please. Oh, wait, no. I found this resource and now I'm totally blanking on it. Did I bookmark it? Yes, I did. I actually bookmarked this. Yes. So an incredible resource I found called kernel 32 functions, which tells you where things are in kernel DLLs. So I was looking for, is it kernel 32? You can actually search. I'm just being weirdly lazy. Create remote thread. It's documented and undocumented. The point, and it's not, it's not necessarily the offsets or anything like that. It's not going down that deep, but it is saying, okay, if you want to gain access, if you want to directly call these functions, you have to go get this DLL. So message box A, yeah. Jerk. So just as an example, I'm going to try to change up create remote thread and try to see if I can do it deinvoke style. So we're going to try this. I'm not sure that it's going to work. But we're going to, first in main, we're going to do extern create deinvoke. It already hates that. Oh, because it's deinvoke RS. Nah? hell's the problem here? Can't find crate for de-invoke RS. And this is about as far as I got last time. If I do cargo build, ignoring invalid dependency, de-invoke RS, which is missing a library target. Oh, which is missing a library target. Okay. So this thing's messed up. Is the problem. It's missing a library target, which means I don't know why I thought that was gonna work. Thank you. We have to, it has to target a library, but it isn't. You see, it needs to have this lib, right? Whereas what we're doing is a bin. If we look at our cargo.toml, well, actually we're just targeting this. We could create a bin because we are, but it needs to have, if it's a library, to give you a better idea, let's look at litcrypt's cargo manifest. You can kind of see what I mean here. Aha, see how it has a lib here? And then a path to the top of the library. Cool. So it looks like we may have to do a lot more work if we want to use de-invoke in this way, because we'll have to, I mean, the way this is structured, all right, path equals de-invoke. But these are also not considered libraries. Right, it's got bindings and data, but it doesn't have, it's not set up to be used as a library. Well, this one kind of is. Fine. This is exactly what I was trying to not do. Okay. Can we respect the P? I don't know what that means. Oh, P invoke. Very nice, yes. So, again, if we look at this cargo.toml, try buying it here first. Path. Yep. So, lib. Let's go back to cargo targets, and as a library, settings for library can be customized in the lib table. Target lib, the name of the target. So we'll say lib name equals deinvoke rs, and the path is going to be what is the path going to be? Hey, Ryan, this is a family-friendly stream. With the exception of the Bo Burnham song earlier. But shh. Source. Oh, that's idiotic. Why is that there? Source, deinvoke. Hold on. It's okay, Foot. Let's choose dependencies with respect. Do I care about this? All right, let's see what the dynamic invoke crate actually does do here. Can I? Okay. Is there anything in here? Extern crate lit crypt. Use bindings. Use data. And use libc. So if we look at the cargo.toml, it's got a data path, which is path up to data, which is its own thing. I think all I needed to do was give it the library, and that should be good. Yeah. Let's try that. Okay, in theory, we have fixed this and turned it into a proper library. I have no idea if that's true, but we'll see. So now we're gonna do extern crate deinvoke rs, which just definitely doesn't work at all. But we're gonna do cargo build again just to see what it says. So many problems. Can't find crate for deinvoke rs. And I don't think that's right. We called it deinvoke RS like this. The dependencies is deinvoke. I think it was deinvoke. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, this is like a mess. And honestly, maybe unnecessary. It's okay, Husky. But it is getting to be that time. I think we're going to have to... No, I know he's not. I think we're going to have to do some more research on this to make it work. We will get it to work. But I think the problem is that this guy has packaged it in such a way that it's just impossible for us to use it as written. So what I may end up doing is completely restructuring this thing, since it's my fork now, to sort it out. And since it's plainly nap time for chat, I think we're going to call it a night there. Oh, yes. Good. A new addition, not to the InfoSec community, but to the InfoSec hack list, is streaming right now. The one, the only Brian Break. And if you don't know Breaking Down Security, the podcast, go subscribe to it right now. But also, we're going to raid him because he's great. Friends, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. I'll be back on Saturday with some Blue Team stuff. Hope you had a great time. Hope you learned something. I know that I did. As always, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and happy hacking. We'll see you next time.